week 15 of the fantasy football season. And here's a few wide receivers I look to drop this week in a crucial week 15 of the playoffs. The first guy, Marquez Valdes-Scantling of the Kansas City Chiefs. So Valdes-Scantling, he's a guy that disappears a lot. He'll have one good game, and then he'll disappear for 2 or 3 games. But fantasy owners, for whatever reason, still hold on to him because obviously his quarterback's Patrick Mahomes, still owned in 44% of leagues here as MVS. So the last few games here for him: Week 12 versus the Rams, 4 catches, 56 yards. Week 13 at Cincinnati, 2 catches, 71 yards. And Week 14 at Denver, a catch for 20 yards. So right now his ceiling's pretty much been 9 and 10 fantasy points in PPR league here for MVS. And he's not a guy I really could count on, and not a guy that you're going to start anyway. So right now, if you could get a lottery ticket, a guy who has a possibility of being an impact player the last 3 weeks here of the fantasy season, if you get that far to the championship, Valdes-Scantling, he's a wide receiver I would drop this week. The next guy, Odell Beckham, right now, Jr. So Odell Beckham, a lot of rumblings. He was going to sign with the Cowboys. He was going to go to the Bills or the Giants. He met with a bunch of teams. But right now, he's not even going to be ready for the regular season. And fantasy owners I've known in some of my leagues pretty much have been stashing Odell Beckham from mid-season on, or even the whole season on right now. So right now, there was a lot of talk that Cowboys were the favorite. They didn't like his medicals, and they went a different direction with T.Y. Hilton. So maybe Buffalo or the New York Giants will sign him up. But right now, even if he signs up, learns the playbook, and becomes a factor, he's not going to be a guy that's really going to have fantasy value. And he's easy dropping. If the Cowboys didn't like his medicals, he's obviously a guy that's not 100% as well, and maybe next season will be a fantasy factor. And the third and final wide receiver I look to drop this week's Rondale Moore, the Arizona Cardinals. So right now with Kyler Murray most likely out for the season here after that non-contact knee injury, even though we got to see more. And more banged up with the groin injury, and Hollywood Brown and Hopkins is the top 2 wide receivers who are going to get peppered with targets anyway. He's not really a guy that'll be a factor the remainder of the season. I know he had a few blow-up games from Week 8 to Week 10, but now Week 11 he had 1 carry for -6 yards. Week 12 in that ball game versus the Los Angeles Chargers, he didn't do anything. Then the bye week, and then he's out again with the groin injury. So Week 15, a tough matchup at Denver that gives up the second least amount of fantasy points if he comes back. Then they got Tampa Bay and then Atlanta, which is a good matchup in Week 17. But right now, like I said, with Murray out for the year, Hopkins and Brown operating as the top 2 receivers, and even James Conner doing decent receiving work out of the backfield, I don't think Moore will be much of a fantasy factor, and he's a wide receiver to drop this week. So that's a few wide receivers I would look to drop here for Week 15 of the fantasy football season.